Matthew chapter 27. I'm going to present a question to you this morning. One that some of us will be familiar with. One that some of us might not be. The question is, who did Jesus die for? Who did Jesus die for? Now, the answer may seem simple to some, but Lord willing, I'm going to try to answer it. Who did Jesus die for? Now, the good thing is we know that Jesus didn't just die, because we say it here all the time. If Jesus died on the cross and that's the end of the story, then we might as well go home, because we got nothing to celebrate this morning. The celebration of this glorious, beautiful Sunday morning is not simply the fact that Jesus died on a cross for us and was brutally beaten. It's not just that. We took Friday, and this past Friday, and we celebrated Good Friday. We take that day aside and we set that aside and we celebrate the cross and the crucifixion. But as Christians, we should be doing that all the time. But Sunday morning, Easter Sunday, or Resurrection Day, if you will, is not about the cross. It's not about the death, burial, and resurrection. Or it's not about the death and burial, rather. It is about the resurrection. It's about the day that Jesus conquered death and hell and the grave. Those things, they don't have any power anymore. They don't mean anything anymore. All that matters is the resurrection of Christ. But let's ask this: who, a couple thousand years ago, how many ever years ago, who did Jesus go to the cross for? Let's go to the scriptures. Let me lead up to the story here. Jesus has been with his travelers or his disciples for about 3.5 years. He comes to the time that he knows his death is at hand. He takes a couple of them and he goes to a garden and he prays in the garden. And he spends several hours there in just agonizing prayer. And sometime near the morning or the late evening, early morning, something like that, people, the Pharisees, bring some Roman soldiers and they arrest Jesus. Take him to the religious courts and find him guilty of a bunch of trumped up, no good charges, things that he certainly was not guilty of, but they found him guilty anyway. And they bring him to Pilate, who is kind of the high court of the land, the highest judge in the land. And they said, Pilate, this is what's going on. Jesus was brought before Pilate, and Pilate talks a lot, and Jesus kind of sits there and listens and takes it all in. And it comes to a time where Pilate says, well, you know what? I can't find anything wrong with him. I don't know what we're going to do with him. The people are wanting to kill him, but I can't find a reason to kill him because he was Jesus, so he didn't do anything wrong. But Pilate says, well, I got an idea. I know how to get him off. It was a custom, it's a Jewish custom, around the time of the Passover, which Jesus and his disciples had just celebrated. It was a Jewish custom that mercy be given to one of the prisoners that had done something that had broken Jewish law, and they were in jail. And so Pilate says, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to give the people a choice. Jesus, or a man named Barabbas? So let's pick up Matthew chapter 27. Let's read verse 16. And they had then a notable prisoner called Barabbas. Now let me explain, we'll come back to that. But let me explain a little bit about Barabbas. If you read the other Gospels, accounts of Barabbas, they will, especially the account that we have in Mark chapter 15, we'll see that Barabbas, he was a bad guy. Okay, he led an insurrection to overthrow the government. He killed people. He was a murderer. He was a robber. He was a thief. He was just what we would think just a scum of society. So Pilate says, that's what I'm going to do. I've got Barabbas. So verse 17, therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, meaning he gathers the people together, all of these people there before him in the court. He gathers them all together and says, all right, explains to them what he's going to do. This is the custom. Y'all know what it is. Who will you? Verse back to the verse. Who will you, or who will ye, that I release unto you? Barabbas or Jesus, which is called Christ? Barabbas or Jesus Christ? In other words, he's telling the people, who do you want me to set free? I can set one of them free. Jesus, who ain't done nothing, or Barabbas, who was the scum of society, the worst of the worst, the lowest prisoner, the most guilty prisoner that we have. Who do you want to be set free? Skip down to verse 21. He asked the people again after some consideration. He says, the governor asked and said unto them, whether of the twine or the two will you that I release unto you? They said, meaning the people said, the people made a choice. Barabbas. What just happened? This murderer, this thief, this robber, this scum of the earth individual just got released and freed from everything that he had done. Why? Because Jesus was going to die in his place. So who did Jesus die for? Well, immediately he literally took the cross that was intended for a man named Barabbas. The guilty of the guilty. The sinners of sinners, if you will, as far as people are concerned. He was just as guilty, and he was had all of these things that he had done wrong, and the people chose to crucify Jesus instead. Now, of course, we know that that's the way it was intended from the beginning. But Jesus died for Barabbas. The chiefest of sinners, if you will. But is that it? Is that all that Jesus died for? Was just some guy named Barabbas? No. No. Who did Jesus die for? Let's look at a few people. Or maybe a few characteristics. How's that? Jesus died for the desperate. Those people that are just seeking something. They just go around and, man, they have an emptiness in their life, and then they try it all. They try alcohol and the old expression, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. They try it. But you know what? They get up the next morning with their headaches and all of their issues that they have the next morning, and they still have the emptiness. They still are seeking for something. They're still desperate for something to fill the emptiness that is in their life. Jesus says, I'll fill it. Jesus says in Matthew chapter 7, he saes, seek If you're looking for something, look for me. Jesus, He is the answer for that void. He is the answer for that emptiness.